Hello, today we're going to be discussing the anatomy of the heart. There's a lot going on here, so let's get started. The heart is a about fist-sized organ located in the thoracic cavity, sandwiched in between the two lungs. If we were to open up the heart, one of the first things we would notice is that it is divided by a very thick, what's called a cardiac septum. This cardiac septum divides it into a right side and a left side. Each side, the right side and the left side, has two chambers. So you end up with a total of four. The uppermost chambers are called the atria, or the right and left atrium. The bottom chambers are called the ventricles, or right and left ventricles. So the four chambers are the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. And they are separated by the thick cardiac septum. Now, you notice in between we have these what are called atrioventricular valves. It's a valve between the atrium and the ventricle. There's one on the left and one on the right. The right atrioventricular valve is also called the tricuspid valve. The left atrioventricular valve is also called the bicuspid or the mitral valve. Now that's in between the atrium and the ventricle, but also if we're leaving the ventricle, pushing blood up through here or pushing it up and around through. All right, so we have one here, and then we have one heading up going into here. We have our semilunar valves. Now the semilunar valve, as we're leaving the right side, is going to the heart, and so that goes up into here through the pulmonary valve, pulmonary semilunar valve, and then here from the left atrium, we're pushing up through that valve into the aorta, so we call that the aortic valve or aortic semilunar valve. So those are the four valves between the atrium and ventricle on each side, and then leaving the ventricle on each side. So that's what's going on inside the heart. Now if we look at the layers of the heart, you notice we have outer, a thick middle, and then an inner layer. The outer layer is not really visualized on this model. Instead, there's what's called the pericardial sac. It's a double tissue layer sac with then an inside third layer called the epicardium, and that's what actually is fused to the outside of the heart. The thick middle layer, something like 2/3 of the entire thickness of the heart wall, is the myocardium. Myo for muscle, so this is the cardiac muscle layer that actually causes the contraction and the squeezing. And then the innermost layer here is called the endocardium. So pericardium on the outside, myocardium, and there that thick muscle layer, and endocardium in the middle. Now, the heart is busy pumping blood, but to function, the heart itself needs blood. And this model here demonstrates, so we have the heart pumping, but then as blood leaves, it then doubles back and goes all throughout the outside tissue. And all these blood vessels here are called the coronary arteries. So coronary arteries are the actual arteries that supply blood to the heart itself, as opposed to the blood that fills the heart that's just there to be pumped to all the other tissues.